SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Hi, this is Dr. Andy Barlow with the Chiropractic Physician Center of Tupelo and author of the #1 best-selling book, The Code Breaker. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Then call my office at 662-844-1414 and order my new book, The Code Breaker.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state.
Hello.
You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, and I am coming at you live from downtown Jackson, Mississippi at the Westin for Innovate Mississippi's 23rd Annual Accelerate Conference on Technology and Innovation. Rhino back in the SuperTalk studios. We have relocated the Element Wealth studios to downtown Jackson on this beautiful Hump Day. Yes, we are. We are at the Hump Day. Pretty cool conference going on down here. Rhino, first time that we have brought the show to the Innovate Mississippi Accelerate Conference on Technology and Innovation. Really cool walking around, seeing all the exhibitors, Mississippi entrepreneurs, and technology companies on hand, investors, business consultants, etc. They're all here. It's a big day. We have a big luncheon coming up. Many at 12 o'clock today. I'm going to slip out and join that for about 5 minutes while the news is playing. Looking forward to that. And it's a beautiful day as well, but my understanding is it's going to get a little chilly. Is that correct, Rhino, coming up this Saturday for the football game? I saw up in Oxford a high of 48, something to that effect. It's like 85 today, I think, so it's teasing us a bit. Did you sleep last night, Rhino, or did you do like I did and stay up watching the election returns?
Oh, I slept like a baby.
Well, I must say I did not. Was somewhat shocked and disappointed. I attended the GOP headquarters last night. They had a watch party, and that was a lot of fun. Michael Guest came down about 9:30 or so when the race was called. He and his lovely wife Haley came down and spoke to the crowd. We enjoyed that. Also, Brian Flowers, who opposed Benny Thompson on the ticket there in Congressional District 2. He actually fared pretty well. I was surprised. I really felt like Benny historically would run away with that race, but that gave me some cause for hope that there is a possibility we could wrangle that seat away from Congressman Thompson and the Democrats. But otherwise, it was a bit of a pink splash as opposed to a red wave. Let's just be honest about it. It did not pan out the way many of the pundits expected. You know, I will admit that I, early on in the cycle, predicted that the Senate would likely stay 50-50. Just analyzing the races and just observing, opining. And then I got more confident, and I felt like that, you know, things are looking better in some of these key races. And I think there's a chance we could end up 51-49, and still is, by the way. I'll go through that in a second. The 4 races still outstanding. I felt a great deal of confidence, but I saw some that were, I think, a bit over their skis with exuberance. Newt Gingrich, for example, just last week, is going to be 55. He's is what he predicted. Well, obviously that didn't happen in favor of the Republicans, and you had others as well that were very optimistic, very enthusiastic, and that's fine. I get that. They should be. They're cheerleaders for their party. But I really think they were being unrealistic and not facing up to reality. The nation is deeply polarized. There's no question about that. It's pretty much split down the middle. I know many out there would disagree with me, but I still do believe it's split down the middle, and I think we have a tendency to stay in our echo chamber. And that's not that that's a bad thing, as long as we are at least aware and cognizant and taking stock of the rest of the nation and how they feel and their attitudes. It seems like we've gotten to the point where it's blue no matter who and red until you're dead. And that's fine, except we're not really taking a hard look at the individual candidates, their qualifications, their policy positions, their ideology. And as much as we are facing significant issues, especially economic headwinds and economic issues, there's not a person out there that's not unhappy about the price of gas, inflation. There's one thing, Rhino, that's kind of hanging out there that I do think it was a factor in the red wave not being produced, not being generated, and that is unemployment. People are working. Normally, when you see these kinds of midterm flips to a significant amount, or even a presidential election, you think back to 2008 when Barack Obama handily won, honestly, and also took both chambers. There was pretty sizable unemployment. And it's almost like, and that was because we were coming off the so-called financial crisis. It's almost as if, well, I don't like this inflation, I don't like this price of gas, but I am working. It's like they give a pass for that. And it's, I think it has been a factor, a fascinating factor. I'm shocked that Kathy Hochul prevailed in New York. I just would have thought that the message of crime and her seemingly indifference to the problem of crime and in unwillingness to accept that, and you see New Yorkers who are interviewed, etc., all complaining about the crime problem. I just didn't see that coming. I really felt like Lee Zeldin had a chance, and that didn't work out. That was probably one of the biggest letdowns. On the C Spire text line, the Pennsylvania people let us down. So consider this, folks. The most expensive Senate election in the history of this great country occurred in Pennsylvania. $200 million, when all said and done, was invested by the candidates in that race. And what did we get? Arguably the worst candidate for the United States Senate ever. That's who won. That is who won. It's kind of hard to fathom that could even happen. I think from the beginning, I stated that I thought Dr. Oz was not a high-quality candidate. I think that was a factor. I think Herschel Walker in Georgia, that race still too close to call. Not called yet, likely going to a runoff on December 6th. You'll probably see $100 million dumped into that runoff, that particular race. But I think that hurt. The Trump factor is an issue. And I think that probably more so than Joe Biden in these key Senate races, Donald Trump was on the ballot. Typically, midterms are referendums on the seated president. Well, heck, if that's the case, what are you happy with? What? Border, crime, foreign policy, inflation, interest rates, price of gas, adoption of climate change and woke ideologies, and and including those throughout the halls of government, what could you be happy about? I'm shocked, honestly, in that respect. Ben from Madison on the C Spire text line, really tough night for Republicans and Trump specifically, but as bad of a night it was for the GOP, it was a great night for DeSantis, the next president of the United States. In my opinion, it's time for Republicans to fully embrace DeSantis because Trump will only hold us back. I tend to agree with you there, Madison. I still believe, Ben, I still believe that Donald Trump's going to announce for president next Tuesday, and I believe that shortly thereafter the attacks on Governor DeSantis will begin in earnest. He kind of teased it a bit with his sanctimonious pejorative this past weekend, but I think you're going to see that. I did enjoy Governor DeSantis' speech. That was a bright spot, honestly, where the House seats flipped in Florida. DeSantis commanding victory. Same with Marco Rubio. Both had stiff competition. South Florida, the Miami-Dade area, looks like it's going red. I've talked about it before. The mayor down there is fantastic. And so those were the bright spots. But I think it comes down to the person, the candidate. And I think he's a very likable person and candidate. We're coming right back. We've got Tony Jeff, the CEO of Innovate Mississippi, coming up next. Stay with us.
Check it out. Let's do this.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's get on with it.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Nobody's got a song to sing. This baby doll. You can make mountains ring.
Welcome back, everyone, to Middays Super Talk Mississippi. The Element Well Studios have been temporarily relocated as we are on the road in downtown Jackson, Mississippi at the beautiful Westin for Innovate Mississippi's 23rd Annual Accelerate Conference on Technology and Innovation. And joining us now, the President and CEO of Innovate Mississippi, Tony Jeff. Tony, looks like we're off to a good start. Big crowd, great venue. A lot of excitement.
We are. It's an exciting time for us. It really is. I think just to see everyone from all over the state and hopefully not just catching up, but doing some transactions together as we bring everyone together from this ecosystem.
It's a fantastic networking event, is it not? And that is critical to businesses and those that are seeking to form partnerships with businesses as well. They're here, and Innovate Mississippi really serves as a hub, if you will, as a clearinghouse to connect those businesses, those startups, those entrepreneurs, and even existing organizations that are perhaps looking to scale their businesses. They get connected here.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, Innovate Mississippi, we don't have like state incentives or anything like that. We are a connect the dot organization. So we have to find these startups, bring them the resources they need to grow to hopefully become investor ready, and then we connect them to investors. So it really is about connecting the dots, which is why events like this are so important.
And in addition, Tony, to connecting them to funding sources, also the organization provides a lot of other services and assistance as well. You have a methodology that you help walk them through the process of getting their products and services ready for commercialization, business planning, marketing, development, strategy.
Absolutely. And so we would hope that no one would fail, but our philosophy would be if you're going to fail fast and fail cheap. So we make them really run through a process of validating their technology, validating their markets, validating their financials, putting together the right plan and the right team.
Yeah.
And having all those elements in place in rotation so that the entrepreneur or the inventor who's working on their product doesn't spend all their time on what they love, their product.
Yeah.
Or in a similar way, you can spend a whole bunch of time planning and then have a product that it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
So that cycle is really important. We make them work through that cycle at every stage, from the earliest stage up until even after they raise money. They're continuing to develop in each of those 5 areas.
Mississippi, across the nation, you don't think of them when you think about technology and innovation. That's fine, but the fact is we have a lot of great entrepreneurs. We have a lot of great technology and innovation that has originated right here in the state of Mississippi, and in many cases with the assistance of Innovate Mississippi.
Yes, and it's been fun to be around long enough to see some of these companies grow up, because I got to tell you, early stage companies, there's a high failure rate.
Yeah.
But then one of the first companies I'd worked with, and I came back to Mississippi, was Joel Baumgar and Baumgar Technologies and what they did, and we've seen company after company of these, and it's not everyone that succeeds by any means.
That's right.
But they've grown large, and then we've been able to see those companies grow, and really right now we have, through the privatization of space and what we have at Senate Space Center, what we have through the blue economy and the port on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, a couple of what I call unfair advantages in Mississippi, which are things that really other states can't even emulate very well. No one else is in this. No one else has the river, shallow, and deep water access with a university and a port that really want to work with industry. So those are 2 areas we're seeing a lot of growth in.
Yeah, and we need these businesses because I think there's been a bit of a heightened focus on the so-called brain drain in our state, and our state leaders, in particular Auditor Shad White, he's called this to attention. He's actually put some numbers to it, and he's talked about not only the quantifiable aspects of it, but the quality aspects of that phenomenon. And we have great universities that are turning out fantastic graduates. We need these businesses to get going so they can hire them, and they're doing it. I've talked to some of them here today.
Yes, and I think there really are 2 elements. One is we need more of those jobs, but honestly we need a better system of just letting everyone know about the opportunities that are there today. I think there are about 300 jobs at any one time on our website from these high growth companies, really interesting jobs, and yet I guarantee you if you went and asked graduating seniors at our colleges, they wouldn't think there were those opportunities in Mississippi.
Yeah.
So we need to both grow the number of those jobs, and I think do a better job of just communicating those opportunities to those students as well.
So Tony, the entrepreneurs that are tuned in today that are listening, and at this point they may be just in the conceptual idea stage, right? And that's where it starts.
Right.
It's just an idea that hatches. How do they engage Innovate Mississippi?
Well, and by the way, we'd love to engage at the idea stage. For some reason, people think they have to have it perfect before they come and see us, and that's the opposite of what we'd like. We'd really like for them to come in at the earliest stage. And really through our website, innovate.ms. And the other thing is we would work closely with the small business development centers. We really work on high growth companies, those companies that are not bankable and have to work through private investors. But the SBDCs are much more familiar with banks and what they could do for the more asset-based companies. And so we work closely. We don't work in the same companies generally that we're handing off. So we will help you get to the right resource, even if we're not necessarily that resource.
And there are a number of interested financial partners in the state of Mississippi that are searching for quality companies, good ideas, good startups, where they can park their money and help them and get a return on their investment.
There really are, and I think it's part of what we've been trying to do and grow in the ecosystem is to make sure investors understand the choices they have and to have some success stories. And we have here today, FNC founder Bill Rayburn is here with us and speaking at lunch, and FNC was a tremendous success story for a lot of Mississippi investors.
No doubt.
That saw really great experts out of that company out of Oxford. Next Gear Solutions out of Oxford had a recent large exit as well. We need a few of those success stories so people understand they can make money in this space, but they also just need to understand it's a collaborative process. So we form these angel funds so that they can share expertise.
Yeah.
They're not expected to be an expert on every deal. They can ask the person next to them who knows that industry better, hey, what do you think of this? And that's part of our process of forming these angel funds, and we're now in the process of forming a fund that's going to go all the way from Natchez up the river region to Oxford, and we may have to break it in 2 funds depending on how large that gets. But we've done similar funds in North and South Mississippi, so we're covering the state with these angel funds as well.
Right, and the process generally is with these startups, these entrepreneurs, they pitch their idea. And that's literally the word we use is pitch. They pitch kind of another word for sell, if you will. They pitch that idea to these groups, these angel fund groups, prospective investors, and then they make a call on whether or not to make an investment and to flow some money in there.
Yes, and we oversimplify by telling people we're like the Mississippi Shark Tank, but literally that part is
yeah, it's right.
a lot
very
like
similar.
Mississippi Shark Tank,
Yeah.
right? But what they're doing is they're pitching, and then sometimes the person says, "You're not quite ready yet, but here, let me introduce you to someone who can help you with this aspect." So there's a lot of other, connecting of dots even at that stage.
Yeah, and also these funds, these groups, these investors, they're a bit unlike the institutional private equity investors in that they're not looking to stroke a really big check.
Right.
And to stroke the big check, you got to have an asset that's worth a lot of money. And a lot of times when they're in this idea concept phase, they're not there yet. They just need some financial assistance. They need some capital to get going. And then these investors are willing to be patient, and then they'll keep making those investments as they see progress and success.
Yeah, so these pre-seed or angel stage investors we're working with, like over the last 5 years, we've seen about 50 investments, and they're averaging 300. Well, the average is about 380,000, but the median is probably more like 250.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing a lot of early stage capital in these, and that's really our niche, is first outside capital. Once a company is raising true venture capital, they can get that anywhere in the country, and they don't care where they are in terms of that
That's
investment.
right.
But when at the earliest stage, they want to be close, they want to kick the tires, they probably want a board seat. So that's why it's so important to have those investors here within the state.
It's a primer, honestly. It's a primer to get them going, kind of a degree of mezzanine support to get them to that next level, to get them institutionalized, where they can go draw the big check and hopefully build a big company right here in Mississippi. That's what we want.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What about your staff? Tell us about that a little bit.
So we just have we have the best jobs in the world in terms of working with crazy entrepreneurs at the earliest stages. So that's part of it. I think we generally have a staff that focuses on entrepreneurial development and capital, because the investor network has to be there before the deals, because you've got to really develop all that ahead of time. And then we try to do these events. We do a monthly connect and these type of things to bring folks together. Unfortunately, we're losing our entrepreneurial development director. So if there's anybody who really loves startups and wants to work with them, like everybody, we're trying to find more people like that.
Yeah. And then touch on the coding academies just a second.
Yes. So we started several years, 2017, the Mississippi Coding Academies, through the leadership of some of our board members. We've now spun that out into a separate 501c3, but they are teaching direct workforce skills in coding in Jackson, the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and in Columbus area. Mm-hmm. So the Mississippi Coding Academy is just an awesome program. Those folks
and the graduates, they're work ready when they get out. Yes. I mean, they're ready to hit the streets running with their employers, producing for their employers. The employers know that, and that's why they're getting good jobs.
Employers come in and design the curriculum and then evaluate them the whole time, so they are ready.
It's awesome. Tony, it's going to be a great day. Appreciate you coming on. Look forward to visiting later on today, and we've got some other great guests coming on that have all touched this Innovate Mississippi organization. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have you here.
Middays is coming right back. Stay with us.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Welcome to our shop
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, now you have a good one.
Welcome back, everyone. Midday Super Talk Mississippi, live from the Westin downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's annual Accelerate Conference, focusing on technology and innovation. Appreciate President and CEO Tony Jeff coming on the program at 10:50. Jim Lowry, Managing Director of Strategy at M-Trade, also a member of the Mississippi Seed Fund Investment Board. And then at 11:05, we've got Henry Barber coming on the set here at the Westin, and he and I are going to further discuss all the election results from yesterday. We'll get into the details there. Anna Barker, Vice President of Business Development for Glow, a startup based in Starkville, joins us at 11:50. And then at 12:50, we'll wrap things up with Joseph Madden, CEO of Fersen Technologies, an optics company based in Ocean Springs. So they're actually doing a pitch during the Company and Investor Spotlight. That is happening, actually happened on Tuesday. It's a pretty cool event. So, just looking at the races that are outstanding, Rhino, I see 4 Senate races still in play, 61 House seats. So where it stands right now, there are 4 Senate seats in play. Democrats have captured 48, Republicans 48. The 4 in play consist of Georgia, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. And it's interesting to see how those pan out, especially considering that we may go down again not knowing who has control until Georgia is decided. That's exactly what happened in 2020. So we got Georgia in play, and we're likely not to have the results from that race until December the 6th, because, again, as we have discussed on the program, winning the Senate race in Georgia or winning any statewide races requires capturing 50% of the vote. So if that doesn't occur, we're going to a runoff. And as it stands right now, that appears to be extremely likely. 98% reporting in Georgia. It's a dead heat. Warnock at 49.4, Walker at 48.5 is what I see here, Rhino. Do you see anything any different there? I mean, it's within less than a point.
Yeah, it's about 35,000 votes deciding it right now.
Incredible, 35,000 votes. The Libertarian candidate peeled off, a couple of million. Is that right? No, that's not. It's not a couple of million. That wouldn't make it. It's a couple of percent, I should say.
Yeah, it's about 2%. It's just under 81,000 so far.
Okay, so 81,000 seems like a lot to me, but anyhow, that is likely to trigger a runoff, which will be held on December the 6th, and I guess we'll all be waiting once again for the outcome. So right now, it looks like Nevada, if it continues on the trend it's on, is likely going to the Republican candidate, and that would simply offset the loss of a Republican seat in Pennsylvania. That one already last night, in fact, called for Fetterman. Just bizarre when you think about it. And then Wisconsin is, you've got incumbent Ron Johnson still ahead, still has a slight lead, 95% in there. So that looks like that's likely to finish with Wisconsin going to the Republican Ron Johnson. Again, that just stays even. That doesn't flip a seat. So you've got Pennsylvania being flipped. You've got Nevada being flipped. Arizona, toss-up. It looks like that's probably going to stay Democrat with Mark Kelly. And then Wisconsin stays Republican with Ron Johnson. So 2 stay the same. 2 offset each other. That means it comes down once again to Georgia. How crazy is that? Who would have thought? So, wow. It's just unbelievable. I'm flabbergasted that that's the situation we're looking at again. Over on the House side, 61 seats still in play, 174 have been called for Democrats, 200 for Republicans. Most are predicting that we end up with 220 or thereabouts for the Republicans in the House. That would mean 215 for the Democrats. So you're almost trading the margin from Democrat to Republican. The current margin is about 5 seats. You trade that in favor of the Republicans to the tune of about 5 seats. And there we go. So it's hard to imagine there's a path at this point for the Republicans to have control of the Senate. Is that kind of the way you read it at this point, Rhino, given the 4 seats that are outstanding? That's kind of what my math is saying there.
Yeah, that's what it's starting to look like.
So I guess because Nevada simply offsets Pennsylvania. Down one in Pennsylvania, up one in Nevada. If Arizona stays the same, and Georgia, I guess if you won Georgia, if Herschel Walker were to prevail in Georgia, that put us at +1, right? 51-49. So, but we're not going to know that until December. If Warnock were to prevail in the runoff, then it's back to Kamala Harris, the vice president, having the deciding vote, right back where we were. So what can we expect if Republicans, as it appears, maintain their current position as of Election Day, with control of the House, flipping the House by 5 or 6 seats? Certainly not a red wave by any stretch of the imagination. I think best we can hope for is they just stop the bleeding from the Biden administration. It'd be hard to get legislation passed in the Senate that could even get on his desk for vetoing unless we got the majority over there, and that's looking less likely at this point. So is it time for the Republicans to move on from Donald Trump? Maybe, just maybe, it's time to move from Trump and the Trump agenda on the C Spire text line. I don't know. I'm just thinking, and the worst candidate is Herschel Walker. Hashtag red wave. How does it help if the House is flipped? It helps. This is on the C Spire text line. It helps in that it makes it impossible, assuming that Republicans all vote similarly as a solid caucus. It helps in that legislation can't get through the House that might come over from the Senate, or legislation that the Democrats may want to pass in the House to send to the Senate can't get out of the House. So it's just the old gridlock is what happens. How does gridlock help the issues that are top of mind to voters, such as price of gas and inflation and crime and the border, etc.? Really doesn't, except it just means that Biden and the Democrats can't keep pouring gasoline on the fire, but it doesn't put the fire out. And that's my concern. And looking at some of the financial analysts' take on this and economists, you know, it's likely that we're going to see the Fed continue to push up interest rates to try to arrest this stubborn inflation. Right now, the Fed funds rate sitting at around 4%. I think we got another 2% in us through next year, up to 6.5%. That's going to push mortgage rates into the 9% category. There's just no evidence that inflation is coming down. In fact, quite the opposite. More and more companies are announcing price increases across the board, across a range of industries. They're finally starting to say, you know, we can't keep absorbing these input costs. We're going to have to pass on some of these costs to consumers. Therefore, we're raising our prices. So when you consider that petroleum, oil and gas are integral to the production of so many products, included as a raw material in many of these products, and of course used to transport these goods to market, there doesn't seem to be any evidence of change in policy there. Very little control over that. Most of that done through executive orders. We're not exploring, we're not drilling, we're not leasing, we're not permitting. All we're doing is trying to put a patch on it by pulling oil from our strategic petroleum reserve. That clearly isn't really doing a whole lot. Thomas in Greenwood says Walker won't win. Pretty sad, honestly. I tend to agree with you, Thomas. I don't feel good about that. And then the question comes up, well, how does Brian Kemp win so convincingly as the governor? I just think he's a more suitable, attractive candidate, and I don't think that Herschel Walker is, and I think he also had a more flawed opponent in Stacey Abrams. We'll step aside for a break right here. The Element Well Studios down at the Westin for Innovate Mississippi's annual Accelerate Conference. Coming back with Jim Lowry, Managing Director of Strategy at M-Trade. Stay with us.
systems go.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to MidDays SuperTalk Mississippi down at the Westin, downtown Jackson, for Innovate Mississippi's 23rd Annual Accelerate Conference on Technology and Innovation. Lots happening around here. Joining us now, Jim Lowry, Managing Director of Strategy at M-Trade, and also associated with the Mississippi Seed Investment Fund. Jim, thanks for coming on. Big day.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So
fun to see.
It's really always great to see all these energetic entrepreneurs and business folks. They're showing their wares. They're so excited about what they've produced and created. And Innovate Mississippi is in the thick of that, and it's good to be a part of that, and good to see the knowledge economy of our state. It really gets its growth from this organization, and certainly from the investment community. You need capital. You got ideas, but you got to have some money to make all that work, to sort of turn those ideas into some commercial value and monetize those ideas. And that's when entrepreneurs and innovators work with the investment community. Tell us about the Seed Fund and how critical that is to that effort.
The Seed Fund is actually it's Mississippi money. It's taxpayer money. It's been around since the late probably 2008, 2009, and it was funded with $4 million. And it is operated by Innovate Mississippi. Really, there's three buckets. There's a $10,000 proof of concept award that's got, as long as you in effect fill out the paperwork, you've got a good idea. Innovate puts you in front of the seed committee. It's pretty low threshold to get approved. There's a $100,000 what I call business expansion, where the framework is much more rigorous. The diligence for approval is much more rigorous. You actually are eligible to receive that twice within after 12 months. And then there's also a partnership or an R&D award, same monetary value, $100,000. The entrepreneur has to have an active research project with one of the research universities here in the state. So there's three separate buckets. It really fills that critical first money in for so many entrepreneurs who've got a great idea but do not have access to either institutional capital or potentially friends and family who can seed that idea. Yeah, exactly. And so the thing that needs to be understood is that they have this idea, and maybe they hatch this idea as an entrepreneur while they're employed elsewhere, taking care of themselves and their family. And when they break away and plunge and take that risk, they got to have some way to keep the subsistence going, if you will, while they're getting that idea to the point where they can take it to market and start producing some revenue for it. And that's where seed funds and angel investors come in. That's exactly right. One of the other critical pieces about the seed fund is it requires a 1-to-1 match. So it's not a grant by any means. It's the entrepreneur has to have a great idea. They also have to have access to a little bit of capital to match that. There's some in-kind details, and the Innovate staff can work through that. A lot of skin of the game, sure. which is a big piece. Well, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to accept that. That's part of it. That's correct. So in our society, in our free market society, we're perfectly fine if you reap the rewards from that, but you got to take the risk to do it. And that's how the system works. All right, so talk about Innovate Mississippi a little bit, if you would, Jim, and its importance to fostering the technology industry in the state of Mississippi. Well, one of the critical pieces, and Innovate has has, I think, really found its stride now. It really serves as a hub to match entrepreneurs with capital providers, with third-party service providers. Again, you look up and down, there's telephony right across from us, there's legal assistance, there's accounting assistance.
Yeah.
As you know, it takes a lot of third-party resources to get these companies up as well. And Innovate really serves as that hub to connect investors, to connect entrepreneurs with not only money but service and also mentors. That's another really critical piece. Many times an entrepreneur has got a great idea, but they do not have the experience, or in many cases they don't know why their idea shouldn't work.
That's right.
And a good mentor can certainly help with that.
Yeah. So M-Trade, Jim, an incredibly important and just phenomenal Mississippi success story. Talk about that for a second.
So M-Trade's been around since 2016. We've got roughly 125 employees. We're based in Oxford. We make workflow management software for large financial institutions who buy mortgages.
Yeah.
And that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very familiar with what they call the origination side of getting a mortgage, but what a lot of people don't realize is that mortgage is going to be sold in many cases. It typically is sold, big portion of the market, they get sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. People might have heard of that.
Yep.
Well, there's about 25% of the market. These mortgages are actually sold to investors, and our software platform connects these investors, which are large financial institutions.
Incredible. It's very sophisticated. Congratulations, Jim. Thanks for coming on. And let's get some seed money going to get these entrepreneurs going.
Let's keep it rolling. Thank you.
You got it. We're going to take a break right here. When we come back after the news, we've got Henry Barber, GOP strategist. We're going to talk about all the election results. Stay with us.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Winter is here again, oh Lord. I've been home and here I approach you.
Welcome back, everyone. Hour 2 of Middays live at the Westin in downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's Accelerate Technology and Innovation Conference. Having a good day down here. Joining us now in the Element Well Studios, our good friend Henry Barber, GOP strategist. Henry, big night last night. Not sure it was a red wave. I don't think I would describe it as that. What do you feel like let's start with the House. What do you feel like is going to be the outcome there, and then we'll sort of dig into how we got here. What do you think at this point?
Well, I expect, and I think the people who are paying really close attention to it, who are certainly more expert than I am with all the details, believe that we're going to take the House.
Yeah.
We being the Republicans.
Sure.
And but not by anywhere near the sort of margin that we were thinking, and so it's a disappointment. But it's huge for running our country.
Yeah.
And so fundamentally, I think for Americans, it's a great thing that we at least know, we think we know, that the Republicans will have the House. That can slow down Biden. Hopefully, we'll talk about the Senate, but hopefully, we got a path there. But it's a lot tighter. Right. But that's significant when it comes to public policy. But
it puts the brakes on at a minimum, is kind of the way I see it, because he's got bigger plans on the agenda, and that puts that on ice for a couple of years.
Well, all of a sudden, you don't have Nancy Pelosi running the schedule in the House, and so now we'll have a Republican speaker, who I think will be Kevin McCarthy.
I do too.
And he'll set the agenda, and it'll be agenda that is more about freedom and safety and economic growth and limited government, the things that I think are good for our country, and slow it down, as you say, put the brakes on.
They could certainly pass some legislation that Republicans want to see, Republican voters want to see. Send it over to the Senate, get all the Democrats in the House on the record, if they don't support, let's say, a bill, as McCarthy has suggested, to defund this 87,000 IRS agents, okay, that's on the record. We send it to the Senate. We get on the record. It's likely not to pass and get to Joe Biden's desk unless we have control of the Senate, which is still hanging in the balance. But there's some value to that, is there not, Henry, in 2 years when we run again?
There's definitely political value. And 24, if we don't win the Senate, the 24 really sets up very well for Republicans. We will really have to have a bad night not to win the Senate 24. And I'm hopeful that we are going to win the Senate this time. We've got Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada are the big chips on the table. Alaska's still out, but we're going to have a Republican
one way or another.
Yeah, they have that funny ranked choice voting. They'll decide that. Wisconsin, Ron Johnson likely holds on. The Democrat Mark Kelly in Arizona likely holds on.
That's what it looks like.
Nevada is tight. I think Adam Laxalt right now looks like he's going to be able to win that.
I agree.
And that means unless Raphael Warnock were to somehow close things out in Georgia, which doesn't seem likely at this point, we'll have a runoff on December the 6th, just like what we had 2 years ago. And Georgia will again decide, are we going to have conservative or liberal leadership in the United States Senate? And it's huge because, and it's huge. You think about Senator Wicker. Senator Wicker will be in line to be a chairman, not a ranking member. So really good. That'd be great, both for just good public policy, but also good for Mississippi, and have impact on Cindy Hyde Smith too, with her in the majority. So it matters to Mississippi. It matters to the country. But Gerard, I'm just going to talk about sort of my general takeaway from last night in a nutshell is, candidates who delivered results and who had a vision for the future did much, much better than our candidates who were stuck in the past.
Okay.
And I think examples, Ron DeSantis, Governor Kemp, Governor DeWine, Governor Sununu, Governor Abbott in Texas.
Yeah.
Let's talk about DeSantis. DeSantis had a huge night, and he won by 20 points. He won Miami-Dade County, and you don't win Miami-Dade County unless you're increasing the Hispanic vote, which obviously he did. And Governor DeSantis, when COVID hit, like any state, you weren't really sure just how bad this is, and so they had to, you had to put some clamps down. But as soon as he realized, okay, we can go, and which was about 3 months later, he opened up his state for business. Same thing Tate Reeves did.
Georgia, Brian Kemp too.
That's right.
Had a good night.
But I think what DeSantis did, what Kemp did, what Tate Reeves did, all that matters to people, right? I mean, and this was a real contrast, particularly when you think about a big state like Florida, because we very easily could have had a liberal Democrat run in Florida. It was a very close race in 2018 that DeSantis won. But in Florida could have been like California. It could have been like New York. Governor, who would have been Governor Gillum, would have been the liberal in Florida. He would have had Governor Cuomo as his mentor. And so instead of all these people who've gone to Florida and all the growth that has happened there and other Republican states, Kay Ivey was reelected in Alabama. Governor McMaster in South Carolina. So policy matters. Candidates matter. And I think last night was just emphasize that. And we need to, as a party, it's really important. Let's focus on getting results for the people, and let's make sure we have candidates who can win. And I do think the candidates who got too focused thinking back to what happened in 2020, it was divisive, and I don't think it it had them thinking about the past as opposed to the future.
That's an excellent point, Henry. And how do we explain Brian Kemp winning in convincing fashion and Herschel Walker struggling?
Well, well, number one, Brian Kemp has an excellent record.
He does.
And I think that gets back to policy matters and the results matter. And, Governor Kemp, he didn't get in food fights with other politicians, which was smart, even when some of them didn't like him all that much. And that was smart. And I think, the Bible teaches us, just because somebody says something to you doesn't mean, you need to go pick up a stick and hit them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a quote.
The concept's all throughout the Bible, though, no doubt.
And so I think his results really helped him. Now, Herschel Walker obviously is a legend in Georgia.
Right.
When anybody meets him, you immediately are drawn to him. He just has the charisma. But he clearly wasn't a polished politician. He clearly has some alleged happenings that are disconcerting to people. And so, he had a drop-off of about 3 or 4 points from and, there were people who just went and voted, in that governor's race, and they skipped the Senate race. But I really believe, Gerard, that Herschel Walker's going to be the next United States Senator from Georgia. Okay. I think that we're going to have this runoff over there. It's going to be a huge deal. But I think that runoff, the message will be, who do you want in control of the United States Senate? Do you want liberal Schumer from New York, or do you want conservative leadership? And so I think keep the message really simple. People are tired of the rising costs, the rising spending, inflation, crime, public schools that have all sorts of issues that aren't healthy for kids, and the people that want to close down schools because of COVID. All that stuff came back to haunt the Democrats, but not as much as it should have. We didn't deliver as a party on what we should have in last night's elections. We left a lot at the table, and and I will say I think we probably underestimated the Democrats. We probably underestimated the issue of abortion as far as turnout in places like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where they had Democrats had serious ground game advantages over our effort in Wisconsin.
Yeah, Pennsylvania too, I think, to some extent. That was a factor.
Question.
Yeah.
New York.
I agree. We got a break right here. We'll come back and keep breaking this down. Appreciate it, Henry. Thanks for being here.
Yes,
We're
sir.
down at the Westin in Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's Accelerate Conference. Stay with us.
The talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
We're rolling. Hit it. Go. Play it.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Midday Super Talk Mississippi. We're at the Westin in downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's Accelerate Conference, the 23rd annual. We've got Henry Barber, our guest GOP strategist, here in the Element Well Studios in the Westin. So, Henry, we talked a lot in the prior segment about the House and Senate races. Interesting gubernatorial races as well. A lot of those went good for the Republicans there.
They did. We had some encouraging results. We've talked about DeSantis in Florida. We've talked about Kemp, Governor Sununu in New Hampshire, DeWine in Ohio, Abbott in Texas. One person I want to make a special mention of is Sarah Sanders
in Arkansas.
I mean, you didn't hear anything about her.
Agree.
Because it was a blowout.
Yeah.
And she never did stupid stuff. She is talking about getting results and doing all this while she found out she had cancer and had treatment for cancer, and she's getting good reports about that. But Sarah Sanders is a rising star, not just in the Republican Party, but in the country. I really believe she has a great opportunity to do great things in Arkansas, and I think a lot of eyes will be on her to see just how she does and how she leads, and so I'm excited about her.
You made a great point earlier in the last segment, Henry, about candidates that focused on the future and shifted away the debate and the discussion about the past. She fits into that mold as well, does she not?
Absolutely, she does. Yeah, I mean, she, her dad's her mentor, Governor Mike Huckabee, and she's here to get things done. She doesn't need this job. I mean, Sarah, super successful, but she wants to get things done in Arkansas. She's got a vision for how she wants Arkansas to succeed, related to the public schools, related to jobs, and bringing in companies to Arkansas, just like what Governor Reeves is doing here in Mississippi. So I'm excited about Sarah.
Yeah, I agree. So what do you think the results here, what does it mean as far as Donald Trump and his kind of being the de facto leader of the GOP? Is that still the case? Has he perhaps lost some of his influence and stroke in the party?
Well, that time will tell. We'll see what President Trump decides to do. He certainly is indicating that he would like to run. But he is somebody, he needs to talk about the future. And I think particularly as you get older, it's important to have a vision for the future, and where are we going to take this country. And so he needs, and in my opinion, that's something he really needs to convince Republicans, is this is where I want to take the country. This is how we can succeed as a country. And I think whether it's him or whoever runs in 24, they'll need to do that. And I think the candidates that did well in this race and this election were the ones who were doing that, who were connecting with people, and that aspirational sort of message. Rubio has always been real good at that.
I agree.
And one thing I mentioned to you in the break, Republicans improved with every racial group, yet we lost. But there's encouragement with white voters. In 2018, we were at 54. We did 58 last night. With African Americans, we went from 9 to 13. With Latinos, 29 to 39. Asians, 23 to 40. Why are they voting for us? Why are they coming our way? And I think it's policy. I think they see what's going on, and I think they particularly related to COVID, things related to telling parents that they can't have a role in a school, or that your kids can't come to school, or if they do come to school, they got to wear this mask. And jobs being open. I mean, entrepreneurs. Latinos are socially conservative. They're entrepreneurial. They have a tremendous work ethic. They fit with the Republican Party, and it's happening. We see it in South Texas. We see it in Florida. I mentioned earlier DeSantis won Miami-Dade County. He won, I think, all but like 5 counties in the state.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, typically you carry the panhandle on down to Central Florida, and then it's usually blue in Southern Florida, and then it's that I-4 corridor that's the difference.
He won Palm Beach County.
I know, Palm Beach is pretty blue.
Democrat stronghold.
Exactly. And the mayor, don't mean to interrupt you there, Henry, but the mayor of Miami is excellent. I don't know if you've ever seen him speak or seen him in public. I think he had a lot to do with that, and he's turning Miami into an economic powerhouse.
Yeah.
They've got all the amenities of the weather of California, which attracted Silicon Valley and so many other industries. He's got that going for him down there too. But absent all the other problems that you get in California, he says, in fact, we've increased our funding for our law enforcement. We want Miami to be a safe place to live and work.
Shocking.
And so they're coming down there.
Shocking. Safety does matter. I mean, we want our families to be safe.
Sure.
And that's just a fundamental thing. And so I don't know what the mayors of Portland and San Francisco are smoking, but
Agreed. That's nuts.
It is. It's bad for our country.
Yeah.
And I will say I thought we were going to do better in this election, and I'm glad it looks like we're going to win the House. I hope we can win the Senate. But I thought we were going to do better. And I mentioned to you before, there's a nugget from a poll that was a couple weeks ago. It said 52% of Democrats think rising crime is the fault of woke politicians. That's 52% of Democrats.
Democrats, yeah.
And I thought, oh, wow. And I think some of that played out in the New York governor's race. Zeldin did well. He just could not close the deal quite. I think he down 5 points.
But he closed the gap significantly. 4 or 5 months ago, it was double digits.
Yes. And what people don't think about is because he ran well at the top of the ticket, it made it stronger for these House pickups that we're getting, and they're going to make Kevin McCarthy the Speaker of the House.
Good point.
And so in states like Florida and New York, that was huge. And redistricting played a central part Florida and New York, because the Democrats in New York tried to get greedy on redistricting, and they overreached, and the courts took it away from them.
Sure did.
And then they got more of a, quote, fair plan. And that's one of the reasons that Republicans are likely going to, very likely, be in control of the House.
Their first pass at that, they pretty much drew out all the Republican districts.
Of course.
And the court said, no, that's not it.
Yeah, they got greedy. My business partner, John Lundy, likes to say, pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered.
It's kind of what happened there. So do you expect that former President Trump's going to announce next Tuesday? He's certainly teasing that. Your thoughts about that?
I'm going to try and stay focused on 22.
Okay.
And we'll figure out 24. Look, we're going to have plenty of Republicans who are going to run. We're going to have strong Republicans. And you know why? Because whoever is the Republican nominee is going to be in a tremendously strong position to win the White House. Whether Biden runs for re-election or whether it's Hillary or
whomever's on the bench,
or whoever comes
Newsom.
along.
I think it's going to be Newsom.
Yeah, it could be. Well, bring him on.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, I don't think most people want the country to be run like California.
I agree. That'll hurt him. And the other thing we should keep in mind is it does set up pretty well for the Republicans. Certainly the Senate does. I think we keep the House in 24. So you'll have a president which also has a legislative advantage as well, and we can get some stuff done.
Huge. There's no question. I mean, if we focus on things and focus on getting good things done for the American people at the Republican Party, and let's not worry about all the politics. You get good policy, it'll take care of the politics. If we do that, yes, we'll have a tremendous opportunity to have the White House, the Senate, and the House, and get the country back on the right track. About 65% of people in America think the country's on the wrong track.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
And that's part of the reason I was disappointed that we didn't do better.
We got to stop with the messaging, Henry, and we're about to go here, that vote for us because we ain't them. And that's pretty much what we're getting a lot.
That's not enough. People need to know what you're for.
I totally agree. Henry, excellent analysis. As always, my friend, appreciate you coming on, and we're going to stay tuned and watch these races, and let's see if we can pull one out and get the Senate as well. Appreciate it, Henry. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Gerard.
MidDays is down at the Westin for Innovate Mississippi's 23rd Annual Conference on Technology and Innovation. We're stepping aside, coming right back.
Started today.
Today is
Is everybody ready?
I'm ready. Ready here.
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone, to Midday Super Talk Mississippi, live from the Westin downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's Accelerate Annual Conference on Technology and Innovation, the 23rd annual. Appreciate Henry coming on and breaking down all the politics from yesterday, all the elections. Lots of text rolling in here on the C Spire text line. From the 205, Florida governor, for president. Time for Trump to step down. Pat Dale from the Delta says, I think last night was a statement that DeSantis will lead us in the presidential election and win it. Bad night for Trump. Trump can attack DeSantis, but I don't think it will matter. I believe Republicans will be motivated enough to get a Democrat out of office. They'll side with DeSantis. He and Kemp could be a good ticket. Interesting. Hadn't thought about Kemp in there. Ricky in Aberdeen says, you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the low unemployment rate. Sadly, a lot of those workers don't realize the effects of high inflation. It does seem like that, does it not, Ricky, that people seem to be more willing to make a change and more interested in making a change if they're unemployed than they do just simply from a situation where the cost of living has risen. They feel like they can bear it. And I think there's to some degree this popular prevailing sentiment that, okay, well, how is changing leadership, changing party control, how is that going to address this inflationary issue? And honestly, other than Kevin McCarthy, didn't really get a lot specifically on how they would approach these problems, how they would address them, how they would cure them. You know, here on the program, we offered some very simple suggestions. Put this legislation on the table, send it to the president to veto. That would reverse all of his goofy executive orders that shut down the oil and gas industry effectively in this country. Let's start with that. Every candidate for House and Senate should have been touting that idea, in my view, because they just didn't. They just said, hey, we're not them. We're not them. They caused all this. We're not them. Okay, well, what are you going to do to fix it? And we just got very little of that, it seems. On the C Spire text line, if Trump runs again, he'll have to adhere to the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not speak ill of any fellow Republican. He had a chance to be a great president, but his mouth and arrogance ruins it. You know, it's a lot. There's a lot of baggage there for sure, and you've seen this constant refrain. Well, I sure could stand some mean tweets right now if the price of gas was $1.90 or whatever. And I get it, and I kind of am in the middle on that. I don't think it's appropriate for a person in that position to just constantly hurl these ad hominem and personal attacks at others, whether they're in your party or not. And I just don't think that's proper decorum for an effective leader. I get it. If the choice is Joe Biden and that, and good, along with good economic policy and foreign policy and just good government in general, okay, I can deal with the liability of the decorum. But gosh, would it be nice to get someone who shares those same philosophical visions and same strategy and approach to governance, but also it is not rife with all of the negative personality traits. Can we find somebody that fits both bills? Certainly there's somebody in this country that can do that. Politico just called Wisconsin Ford Johnson. Great. Appreciate that. That's on the C Spire text line. I saw that as well on the break. So that means we're down to 3 states, the way I calculated, Rhino: Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia. Is that the way you see it at this point? Because Wisconsin was the only one. Alaska hasn't been called yet, but in ranked choice voting, it's down to 2 Republican candidates. So that's going to go in the Republican column. Libertarians cost the right control in both 2020 and 2022. Even if we accept the cheating in 2020, the wasted vote still would have carried both elections for the Republicans. I mean, you just certainly don't want to say, I'm not in favor of telling libertarian candidates or any independent candidates or non-Republican or Democrat candidates, hey, don't run. I mean, exercise your constitutional right to run for office. The Republican candidate should be able to effectively persuade a sufficient number of voters to get them elected. It's just simple as that. It shouldn't be. So 80,000 in Georgia. So here's the question, though, to this point, Chase from Columbus. What do you think happens with the 80,000 votes plus votes that were cast for the Libertarian candidate in Georgia? Can we expect those to flip to the Republican? You know what I bet? They stay home and don't vote. They stay home and don't vote. What do you think? Any thoughts on that, Rhino?
Yeah, I think it's become too much of a popularity contest, and there are some on both sides that feel the need to apply purity tests when there really is no way forward.
Yeah. So your reaction is, okay, I'm just not going to do anything. I can't change anything. It's not going to go my way. I'm not happy. I don't know. I don't see how there's any value or benefit created from that. In fact, quite the opposite. I think we all lose in that situation. So I hope that's not the case. Leon from Ripley said, why did every host on political media start using top of mind after the goofy press secretary said it? Come on, people. Okay. Leon from Ripley also said, I've been a listener for over 20 years and just recently started texting. My question is, do you have any fear of something fishy going on with the election, especially a couple of states after Biden's statement about it taking up 3 days for a decision? I don't. And I'll tell you why. Just thinking about it logically, I think the outcome across the country truly does reflect the overall sentiment of the voters. If there was a race or two in a state or two that were particularly fishy, I could maybe get on board with there being some sort of problems. I'm aware of the issues in Maricopa County yesterday, and that's certainly something to be concerned about. Again, both of those races, key races, governor and Senate, have yet to be called. But let's look at Georgia. So if there are problems with voting in Georgia, which is likely to be the Senate race that decides control of the Senate, then how did Brian Kemp prevail so much? And if you look in Pennsylvania, the governor there absolutely waxed the Democrat candidate, the Republican candidate, yet the Senate race is within a point. So it's hard to conclude from those juxtapositions that there was anything irregular occurring. Paula Meridian says, I really believe that our country is getting dumber. Seems low IQ people are having the most children. It's the only way I can reason why people in Pennsylvania voted for Fetterman. It truly is a head scratcher. I agree. That guy, it's just a head scratcher. I also wonder, Rhino, if to some extent Barack Obama and even Joe Biden coming into Pennsylvania at the 11th hour played a role. I wonder about that. I really do. I also wonder about Oz and kind of being a celebrity doctor. I think you'd have a better chance if you were a doctor coming out of a hospital in a surgical clinic or something to that effect than you are just for some extent being a celebrity doctor on TV. I think they were able to really cast him as just kind of a wannabe to some extent. And also they very effectively disclosed that his permanent residence, though he's got multiple houses, he spends more time in New Jersey. I think that was an issue as well. And the other comment, you remember the comment he made, Rhino, a couple of weeks ago about I think abortion should be between a woman, her doctor, and a local politician, that had to be one of the most dumb statements ever made by a candidate for office, honestly, in a state where that issue is important. If Mr. Trump would not have come out and spoke, the GOP would have had the red wave. It's time for him to just stop. The swing voters do not want to hear his points anymore. DeSantis for president. That's Dale in Independence. Appreciate the message, Dale. Part of the deal, then he knew what was happening. That's why he put his announcement off at the last rally, and the reason he labeled DeSantis, he wanted to ease the support and Trump supporters like me over to DeSantis. He will still have a voice, but I think he will relinquish his power to DeSantis. I supported him and still do, but DeSantis is the only path for conservatives to the White House. Trump should demand DeSantis runs unopposed on the Republican ticket and get behind him. Don't think that's going to happen, but I hear you, Jerry. I would say that, Rhino, this seems to be a rather resounding theme on our text line, and I heard the same in Paul's show this morning, that people are kind of getting over Trump. They're shifting to DeSantis and feel like that's the best path going forward. We'll step aside for a break right here. We've got Anna Barker, VP of Business Development at Glow. That's a startup based in Starkville, coming on next. Stay with us.
It's so awesome!
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Come on, let's get on with the show!
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Midday Super Talk Mississippi. We're at the Westin in downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's 23rd Annual Accelerate Conference on Technology and Innovation. Joining us now, Anna Barker, VP of Business Development for Glow. That's a startup based in Starkville, Mississippi. Anna, thanks for coming on the program. Yeah, so tell us about the organization Glow exactly. I've been familiar with your products, your technology, quite novel and unique for sure. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so basically the technology behind Glow, it was created while we were students, my co-founder and I, and we were, we thought we had everything lined up after graduation. He's an electrical engineer by trade.
Gotcha.
He's going straight to Tesla. I had a job lined up as well, and we got involved with Entrepreneurship Center, and we found a application for the technology in the children's market, specifically at the start for children with autism or sensory processing disorder. And honestly, it was the Entrepreneurship Center at Mississippi State and Eric Hill and Jeffrey Rupp who set us down, and they said, hey, what if you guys gave this a go and really tried to make something out of it after graduation? And so that's what we did, and we're still based in Starkville, and it's been a really wonderful journey.
All right, tell our audience exactly what it is you produce. What is Glow?
Yeah, so Glow is pretty much, the whole company revolves around Glow Pals, which is a children's line of light-up sensory products. And so we have these characters. They all have their own personalities and little traits and quirks. You can download activities and free resources on our website for each character. And we launched that first initial product, grew that, and now are in a real season of product development and just continuing to grow our the Glow Pals brand in the kind of niche of early childhood development where
Gotcha.
we started.
So what about your relationship with Innovate Mississippi? How did that go? What exactly did they help you with?
Innovate has really been a part of our story from the very get-go. We obviously got involved with Innovate Mississippi while we were still students. We were introduced to them by Mississippi State's Entrepreneurship Center, and I mean they've helped us with everything from networking and connections to actual funding opportunities. They were very early to give us to kind of back us and give us some funding, and we've been huge proponents and huge advocates of Innovate Mississippi ever since, because they've always been huge advocates for us.
Yeah.
Before they really should have been. When we were just getting started, they've been a huge advocate for entrepreneurship in the state, and we are so grateful for for them.
And the company's still based in Mississippi, right?
Yeah, it's still based in Mississippi. So we have about 30 employees, and we, at the start, we were really concentrating on just hiring in Mississippi in our Starkville office. We now have some remote employees across the country. We have them as far as Atlanta to out in LA, but the majority of it in our office is headquartered in Starkville, Mississippi. We've shipped to 45 countries.
Wow.
And have retailers in all 50 states, and that is all tested, designed, packaged, and shipped out of Starkville, Mississippi.
Okay. So you're producing there as well?
We don't actually do the production there,
Okay.
but we do all the design and stuff,
Okay.
and then the product comes in raw form. We do all of our testing and safety certifications there, and then we package, assemble, and we ship it out from there. So like we ship to big key retailers like Kohl's, Barnes & Nobles, Nordstrom. That is all like completely palletized, assembled, and shipped out right in Starkville, Mississippi on Main Street.
So how long have you been in business doing this?
So I graduated in 2017, and it's when we first kind of started to pivot into the children's market, and we launched the Glow Pals at the start of 2018.
Okay.
And so we've been really pretty much concentrated in the kids market ever since then.
Yeah. And you said you had customers abroad as well, not just in the U.S., but you ship all over.
We've shipped to over 40 countries, as I mentioned, and that has come with its own unique challenges, and figuring out how to deal with the customs and duties and the different languages, and it's such a cool challenge, and it's such a cool thing to get to do right at the very start of your career as
That's
well.
Awesome. Is there anything in the state of Mississippi or being based in the state of Mississippi that you view as an impediment or a benefit?
So doing a startup in Mississippi, you can't deny that it comes with its own geographical challenges.
Sure.
It just does.
Mm-hmm.
But the benefits far outweigh it. One thing that we always talk about is when you think about a startup, you think about this very Shark Tank, very competitive, sort of like, everyone's out for themselves sort of environment.
Dog.
Yeah. And that is the exact opposite. We got to, right out of the gate from graduating college, we got to build a company in an environment where everyone wanted us to win. The entire community was cheering us on. I was just telling someone that our first Christmas, we were completely overwhelmed. We got this huge influx of orders. We had never seen anything like it. The dean for the College of Business actually sent Jeffrey and Eric and other workers from the Entrepreneurship Center to our office. They sat on our floor to package product. Our landlord sent his wife and daughter there. So we have this whole community in Starkville all sitting on the floor of our office packaging product.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on all your success and for being part of this event, and we look for bigger and better things in your future.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Anna Barker, VP of Business Development for Glow. That's a startup based in Starkville, Mississippi. We're stepping aside for a break right here. It's time for Super Talk News, Fox News. We'll come back with a lot more talk. Stay with us.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Hour 3 of Middays live from the Westin in downtown Jackson. We're here for Innovate Mississippi's annual Accelerate Mississippi conference, focusing on technology and innovation, and the luncheon gets started. Had to step away for a minute and welcome everyone to the conference, and it is packed in there. It's a great day. Great day, Rhino. So on the C Spire text line, Sam from Mount Hermon continuing the discussion, which I guess we sort of got into before we went to break at the top of the hour, about Donald Trump and his future in the party and whether or not he should run, and if he would you consider him after last night to be the de facto leader of the Republican Party. Sam says Gerard Trump had his time in the White House. Let him go and enjoy his retirement playing golf and his family. Now is the time for a younger DeSantis DeSantis to go on and do the country what he did for Florida. Trump was relevant when he needed him, but now we don't. Thanks. And I hear you, Sam. I would just say this. Trump's age doesn't bother me because he still seems to be very physically fit, and in fact, he doesn't look like he's aged hardly at all to me, and he seems to be of sound mental capacity as well, something we can't say about the current president. That doesn't bother me as much as it does. Again, I think we would benefit as a nation from someone who holds Trump's beliefs about government and philosophy about the role of government and policy positions, but also has, let's just say, a less toxic and controversial personality. I think we'd benefit from that. I do think that has, to a great extent, divided the country. And then we get a guy who's, what's his name, Rhino Walter, the puppet, that's always got the scowl on the face. He always seems mad and, pumping his fist. And so we kind of went from one toxic personality to another. Now, I will say this about Trump. With respect to the nation and the benefit, or I should say the goodness of America, no doubt his heart's in the right place on that. I give him that. He loved this nation. He always put it first. I consider him a patriot in that respect. But, man, just the slightest bit of disagreement with him and the revolving door he had with key staff, including cabinet members, most of whom didn't speak very highly of him. And then when they were dismissed, he kind of trash them out in the public square. I just don't think that's appropriate. Nor do I with respect to a private company. I've had situations like that where something didn't work out, and you just let it go. You just don't talk about it. That's inside baseball, so to speak. And Trump just couldn't hold back. He was constantly berating those who if they'd leave, on their own accord, he'd berate them and basically suggested he terminated them, and they would say, no, that's not the case. I just couldn't work for the guy anymore. So anyhow, that I think means that we ought to go forward with somebody different. I like DeSantis for sure, and I think he would be a high-quality candidate for president. And I will tell you that go take a look at this mayor of Miami. I think his name, if I'm not mistaken, Rhino, is Suarez. But he is awesome. Yeah, Francis Suarez. He is an up-and-coming rising star, and maybe it's DeSantis for a couple of terms and Mayor Suarez on his heels. I suspect he's got aspirations for higher political office. He just has, I think, the right idea about how to build a vibrant, safe community, that being Miami, a place you wouldn't think would be the case, but contrast it to the wokeness and the law and that has been lost in New York, in Chicago, and San Francisco, and other the lawlessness that has set in those major communities. Miami's not like that, and I've seen this guy Suarez talk, and he says, "Yeah, we didn't defund police; we increased funding for police. We've got the biggest police force we've ever had. We don't tolerate crime. We don't tolerate homeless tents and drug abuse all over the streets. We don't." And heck, in these other cities, they welcome it. This goofy Fetterman, you've probably seen that, folks. He wants to create these injection sites, right, where all the heroin. He wants the government to pay for that, where all the heroin addicts get together and freely inject themselves with drugs. I mean, he wants to do that at the federal level. And yet he looks like he's going to prevail. He's been called to win that race. So on the C Spire text line, it's not his age, it's his personality. And I agree. I just want to make that point. And I'm not being argumentative with you there, Sam, about that. I just want to kind of add that caveat that I'm not as concerned about. I'm not concerned about a person's age until it begins to show physically or mentally, which I do think we have with this particular president. I don't see that with Trump. And if he, again, weren't quite as caustic in his personality, I'd certainly be okay with him running again. But it's the way he is. You're not going to change it. But I believe he's going to announce next Tuesday. And I sense that if he doesn't get the kind of reaction that he's looking for from the public and from maybe others that he feels like ought to pledge their support, certainly high-profile political leaders, I think he's going to trash them. He's going to trash the public. He's going to trash these other political figures that aren't getting on board with the Trump campaign. Trump is not good for the party anymore. It's time for DeSantis to lead the party. I would like to see a DeSantis-Gabbard ticket. Tulsi Gabbard, of course. I would invite you, that's on the C-Spire text line, to dig a little deeper into Gabbard and her philosophy about health care, about economics. She's a socialist, folks. You just need to know that. She's a Bernie Sanders socialist. Now, when it comes to her calling out the Democrat Party on their wokeness and their disregard and seemingly disdain for law enforcement and their failed and flawed foreign policy, I agree with her for the most part. She's excellent. She's for Medicare for all. She is she's for higher taxes. She supported the Green New Deal. She supports the Build Back Better plan, not as a member of Congress because she wasn't in Congress, but she's on record as talking about those. And go watch some of her debates. If you get bored, you want to go pull those up on YouTube and watch how she answered lots of the questions when she was a candidate for president about that. I'm just saying that I'm good with DeSantis. I don't think Gabbard. I can't get on board with that one. I just don't agree with her policy positions on economic matters, and I don't think she'd be in our best interest in that respect. You don't think the current administration doesn't trash Trump every day, all day? It's way more than Trump tweets, says on the C-Spire text line. Yeah, I do, but they trash him about his caustic personality. It's different. I mean, they don't hurl all these ad hominem insults and pejoratives and labels. It's you don't get any of the de sanctimonies. By the way, I don't think that's good either. I don't support that, and I think their obsession with Trump and January 6th is over the top, long in the tooth, not important to most Americans, and I'd like to see us move past that and forward. So Trump is a New Yorker. He can't help trashing people. Loved his policy, but probably won't like him as a person. That's it. That is a common analysis, and I get it because New Yorkers generally are very boisterous, outgoing, no-holds-barred people, but having spent a bunch of time in the investment community in New York, they're not like that. In fact, they, almost to a person, can't stand Donald Trump. Can't stand it. I'm talking about conservative capitalist investment financial types that vote Republican can't stand Donald Trump and thought he was a joke, honestly. But there's no question that it's a different culture, than we are accustomed to here in the South, and I think Trump was unable to temper that. Jerry in Waynesboro says she's Hindu and worship cows. Talking about, I didn't know that about Tulsi Gabbard. Tim and McGee, DeSantis, and Ben Carson, to me, would be a good ticket. Interesting. If Trump announces Tuesday he'll sink Walker in Georgia, that's an interesting analysis, and that you could be right on that. That's on the 731, the C-Spire text line. That's interesting. But I'm glad we're having this conversation, Rhino. I think we needed to have this conversation. I'm glad to see people want to talk about it. We need to be thinking about what's in the best interest of the country and the state, and not just a person and a candidate. We're going to step aside for a break right here. Once again, we're at the Westin in downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's annual Accelerate Conference. We're coming right back. Joseph Madden at 1250, the CEO of Ferson Technologies.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Midday Super Talk Mississippi, live at the Westin downtown Jackson. This is a really nice place, folks, if you hadn't been here, by the way. I know Jackson, it certainly gets a bad rap, etc., and because of all of its issues, and I understand that, but I've been to several events here. Not sure if you have, Rhino. It's a very nice hotel down here, right across from the Sheriff's Department of Hinds County, and it's to the east of the museum, the Alumara Hall, etc. It's a nice place, and it's the food here is really good too. Food's good, service is good. Great venue for this event, Innovate Mississippi, Accelerate 23rd year. Actually, kind of helped get all that going a long time ago, trying to grow the technology industry in the state of Mississippi, and Innovate does a really good job. And the board of directors, it's such an honor to be part of it. Some really well accomplished thought leaders, business people, technologists that do a fantastic job, and that come from both the public and the private sector, by the way. And they guide this organization, provide traditional board governance, and they're just excellent, fun to work with. So, besides the elections of members of the House, Senate, governors, etc., abortion was on the ballot in a few states. In Kentucky, a constitutional amendment that would state there is no right to abortion or any requirement to fund abortion in the state constitution. And that failed. So, in other words, I think I'm reading this right, Rhino. An amendment would state there is no right to abortion. So it would be an amendment in the Constitution saying there's not a right, rather than one that's affirmative. In the affirmative, there is a right.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the way I interpreted it. So that failed. So there's no amending the Constitution in Kentucky to assert that there is no right to an abortion. And then in Vermont, a proposal as well, Vermont proposal number 5, would create constitutional right to personal reproductive autonomy, is the way it is styled. And that prevailed by 77%. So the Vermont Constitution will have an amendment in it protecting the right to reproductive autonomy. Why do they always sort of stress it up with that kind of flowery language like that?
Because if they actually told the truth, people that are proponents of it would be horrified.
So we just have to veil it, right, and disguise it. That's what's happening. Michigan Proposal 3, constitutional right to reproductive freedom. That also prevailed. 56% voted in favor of that. So the Michigan Constitution will be amended to include a constitutional right to reproductive freedom. Interesting. Montana, born in alive infants regulation. Is it just me, or is it insane that we even have to have this discussion in a legal context in this country? This measure would enact a law making any infant, quote, born alive at any gestational age a legal person, a protection that already exists under a federal law passed 20 years ago. And it would criminalize healthcare providers who do not make every effort to save the life of an infant, quote, born during an attempted abortion. And that got a no. That did not prevail. That was not ratified. Doctors apparently say they are concerned that the law would limit palliative care for infants who are born but will not survive. Interesting. Man, it's getting complicated. California Proposition 1, constitutional right to reproductive freedom. You know where that went. California, 65% voted in favor of that. So there you go, abortion on the ballot. Marijuana, we talked about that, and drug policy on the ballot. Maryland, question 4, legalize cannabis. That won 65%. Missouri, legalize marijuana. That won 53%. North Dakota, legalize cannabis. That lost. South Dakota also lost. And in Arkansas, neighboring Arkansas, legalization of recreational marijuana failed at the ballot. Interesting. Against 56% to 43%. And it is I believe there was one state that also expanded Medicaid. I believe that was South Dakota, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that there are 11 states remaining in the nation that have not expanded Medicaid. Most of those are concentrated in the South, Mississippi being one of those. Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Texas come to mind, Tennessee, I believe, and there's a couple others. But all that happened yesterday. There was also one amendment related to voting access, and that was in a ballot measure, I should say. That was in Ohio, requiring citizenship to vote. Wow. Did we even have to put that on the ballot to ratify? Seems crazy to me. Local governments would be prohibited from allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections, and that passed by a fairly wide margin, 77% to 23%. So just catching you up a little bit on some of the other matters that voters decided on. So I guess with Wisconsin called for Republican incumbent Ron Johnson, who, by the way, the Democrats went after hard because he and Senator Rick Scott of Florida are the two that have really been talking a lot lately about needing to address the economic status of Social Security and Medicare. And, of course, Joe Biden went around the country saying the Republicans want to end Social Security and Medicare, which is completely not true. Of course, he has a hard time telling the truth. Let's just be honest about it. And it was rather shocking to me that was an effective message. And while Ron Johnson prevailed, it was barely. I haven't seen the latest numbers, Rhino, but I want to say that it was 1% or so of the vote separating Ron Johnson. Yeah, 50.5% to 49.5%, 27,000 votes. And this Mandela Barnes guy that opposed him on the Democrat side, he's a card-carrying socialist. I mean, he's a defund the police, let's confiscate all the wealth of the rich people and shove it out the other door to everybody else. And I'd be a big supporter of the Green New Deal, and he's a climate change nut and wants to empty the prisons and all that sort of stuff. I mean, he's kind of another Fetterman, and Ron Johnson barely beat him, 1%, 27,000 votes. And I just wonder, now he was a well-known figure. He had a lot of name ID. He served as the lieutenant governor of Wisconsin. But it makes you scratch your head. The state of Michigan, it is my understanding, the legislature went all Democrat, and now Michigan, with Governor Big Gretchen Whitmer winning there against her Republican challenger, the governor's race, the trifecta now exists in the state of Michigan. So that's a bit of concern as well. Anyhow, just getting you a little caught up. Killing unborn babies doesn't sound good, says CC in Senatobia, replying to this rather tricked up language that is used to describe this legislation that is protecting in the Constitution the right to essentially abortion on demand. Pat in Oxford, check out Carrie Lake. She just tweeted that she is about to win big. I know it was trending in her direction. Rhino, you seen an update on that one? Once they started getting into the precincts that were likely to be more supportive of her, this morning it did appear that things were trending her way. See what I can look up for you on that. We're taking a break right here. When we come back, should have some more information, and we're going to continue talking. Another segment, and then Joseph Madden, CEO of Fersen Technologies, a precision optics company based in Ocean Spring, joined us to round out the day. Coming right back.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Midday Super Talk Mississippi, live from the Westin, downtown Jackson. We're at Innovate Mississippi's 23rd annual Accelerate Conference, focusing on technology and innovation in the Magnolia State. So, did a little looking into the race in Arizona for the governor. And what I see, Rhino, is the latest I can find, latest update, 66% of the votes in. Democrat Katie Hobbs in the lead, 50.33 versus Republican Carrie Lake's 49.67% of the votes. Looks like less than 12,000 votes separate the two. A total of 1.7, nearly 1.8 million votes have been tabulated to this point. You see anything more current than that? I did check the tweet out that someone on our C Spire text line notified us about. She, in fact, did say that. Wow, we're going to win big. Stay tuned, Arizona. And that came up about 50 minutes ago. So
and what's the difference on that one again in votes?
Less than 7,000. Let me check it again.
Yeah, that might be why she said that, because it's dropped from almost an 80,000 vote difference to less than 12.
Right, less than 12. And I think my guess is they're looking at the precincts, that have been counted and the ones that are outstanding, and they're familiar, obviously, with how those typically go, and they're accounting for that. That's what you got to think. And she actually said that this morning, or she may not have, but someone from her campaign did when she was trailing by such a significant amount. I think somebody this morning actually said, yeah, but we hadn't really got to the the counties, the precincts that typically vote red. And I'm looking at a map of Arizona, and folks, as you know, if you look at the maps, the county maps of the United States, as you move further out to the west, the counties are much larger. We just didn't break the land up, and I don't know, honestly, Rhino, all the history on that, of how that worked out. I'm that happened long before either of us were around, and I haven't really studied the history on that. But I just know, if you I want to say, like in Georgia, there's over 100 counties, and as you get towards the East Coast, you got really smaller, concentrated counties, and as you go to the west, you got much larger geographic land-wise counties. I know in California, I lived for a while in Kern County, which is the San Joaquin Valley, where Bakersfield and Fresno is. And folks out there told me when I was traveling, said, yeah, Kern County's like 20% the size of Mississippi, just one county. But back to Arizona, I'm looking at it. There are not too many counties And it's kind of amazing. You look at Phoenix and the counties around it, it's light blue. And if you look at Tucson to the south, it's a darker blue, and then to the north on the eastern boundary, a darker blue, and then in the center, a darker blue. And then the rest of the counties along the western edge are deep red to pink, and in the southeast corner, deep red to pink. So I think they know. These poll watchers and these campaign folks, obviously they know how those counties usually vote, and I think they're figuring into their math. And my guess is what Carrie Lake is talking about is, we're getting to the counties that we're going to really rack up in, and that's what's going to put us over the top. So that'd be good news. Now, that's a situation where even though she, I believe, had Trump support, she's just a high-quality candidate against, I think, a very deeply flawed candidate. Katie Hobbs is just terrible. She really is. And I think ultimately Carrie Lake wins. Now the question is, why isn't Blake Masters getting the same sort of love, as they would say, in the great state of Arizona on the Senate side, running against the incumbent there? Why isn't he getting the same level? I'm not sure. But he's clearly not. It's kind of interesting to watch how these things are shaping up, where it doesn't seem to be as much about party, certainly at the Senate and the level of governor statewide, more about the person and the personality. So Mark Kelly, with 68% of the votes in, presently leads Blake Masters by 5 points. 5 points. Has a 90,000 vote edge out of a total 1.8 million tabulated thus far. That's out in Arizona. So, if I were a betting man, I'd say that stays Democrat with Mark Kelly. I'd say Laxalt wins in Nevada, and that's 2 of the 3 remaining races. So that puts us at 49-49. Going into, I believe that's right, going into the situation. No, there's one more. It's Alaska. Yeah. So that puts us at 50 with 50-49 in favor of the Republicans, with Georgia outstanding. So if the Republicans win Georgia, then it's 51-49. If they lose Georgia, it's back to 50-50 with Kamala having the power to cast the deciding vote. Wow. Check out the size of Aroostook County in Maine. It's bigger than most of the small states up there. That's interesting. I haven't done that. Mark from Gulfport writes. And, just looking at the Carolinas, Georgia, it typically is where I've kind of focused. Maryland, they seem to be a lot more chopped up with really smaller counties. Missing ballots from 21 precincts in Hinds County. Hinds County? Says Georgia and Oxford. I haven't heard that. You know anything about that?
There was reporting on it last night, yeah.
I'm not sure what the deal is there, or whether or not that makes a difference. Certainly it could in some municipal or judge races, which were on the ballot, school board, et cetera, but I don't think it would in the races for U.S. Congress,
Yeah,
US
that's
House.
why you're seeing the percentage reporting from the different House districts. You've got Mississippi House District 1 with 95% of the precincts reported. You got House District 3 with 94% of the precincts reported. And then House District 4 with 99% of the precincts reported, while House District 2 only has 77% reported.
Okay, makes sense. There you go. So, on the C Spire text line, Thomas in Greenwood sent us a screenshot of a rather interesting tweet. And it's from Maggie Haberman. Is she a member of the House, Thomas? Member of the House of Representatives?
No, that's the New York Times reporter that catches grief for being close to Trump.
Oh, New York Times. Right. I see it now. I see her handle there. Thank you, Rhino. Trump is indeed furious this morning, says Maggie, particularly about Mehmet Oz, and is blaming everyone who advised him to back Oz, including his wife, describing it as not her best decision, according to people close to him. You know, it'd be nice to be able to vet that, the veracity of that, Rhino. I'm not sure what to think about that. She goes on to say there are people pushing Trump to reschedule his announcement next week, and several R's have texted asking whether he will, but it's risky and would be acknowledging he's wounded by yesterday, something that some of his advisors insist is not the case. She's just pulling a Trump and getting ready to cry foul. You're talking about Kerry Lake there, Thomas? Possibly. Hate to be a Debbie Downer, but runoff absolutely doesn't favor Walker in Georgia without the governor race to drag him up. I'm afraid it'll be a wash for Warnock. Chase from Columbus texts. It could be right. You absolutely could be right. If the Senate ties 50-50, Manchin will continue to be the most powerful person in D.C. on the C Spire text line from the 228. Excellent analysis. I guess we have to rely on him to hold the line. You know, we may have a better chance of getting him to push back on Joe Biden. We haven't talked about it, Rhino, but you've probably seen he got all over Biden for a speech he made a few days ago where he said, we're going to shut down all the coal plants. We're ending coal. No more coal. And that didn't sit well with Manchin. He went public in his admonishment of the president about that. Of course, he coming from West Virginia, a state that he relies heavily on coal for jobs and its economy. And he came out against him. You know, I got to tell you, though, folks, dude, Joe, you hitched your star to the devil. You got on board with that stupid Inflation Reduction Act. It's you. You could have stood in the way of it, but you got on board with it. Then you didn't get the permits that you thought you were going to get for oil pipelines as a result of supporting that legislation. You got duped. You got rolled. And now the president, the guy who convinced you to get out of the way and let this stupid Inflation Reduction Act become law, now he's rolling you. Going to shut down the coal industry, something in your state. And I hope you pay the price at the ballot box last time. I'm serious about that. You laid in bed with the devil, and that's what happens. You got burned. Time for a break here on Middays. We once again are at the Westin in downtown Jackson for the Accelerate Conference. Coming right back with Joseph Madden, CEO of Westin Technologies. Stay with us.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. Midday Super Talk Mississippi, live at the Westin in downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's Accelerate Mississippi Conference, 23rd Annual Accelerate Conference. A couple of quick announcements. One question, didn't Senator Wicker vote for the same bill that we were just talking about that West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin did? No. What Senator Wicker voted for was the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, $1.2 trillion last November, and he voted for the CHIPS Act just a couple of months ago. He did not support, no Republicans did, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is where I think a deal was made with the devil by Senator Joe Manchin. Also, another quick announcement, the Secretary of State of the great state of Georgia has just announced that that race will head to a runoff. Just wanted to pass that along. So joining us now, Joseph Madden, CEO of Westin Technologies. Joseph, thanks for coming on Middays.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's been a great conference. Tell us about the company. What do you guys do?
Westin Technologies was started in 1942. We are based on the Gulf Coast in Ocean Springs. We have a 70-year legacy as a defense optics manufacturer. We are very happy to be a Mississippi company. And
what's defense optics? What does that mean?
So essentially one of the things that we work on and that we do is essentially for the tow missile. And we send that, we code it. We make sure that the tow lamp and the tow sensor is coded. We're the only company that can do it. And that is essentially what has been going over to Ukraine. So that's something we don't take it lightly what we do. We make sure that we build quality defense products for our armed forces.
Interesting. So, what do you think about this conference? And do you have some business that you're taking care of up here?
Definitely, conferences are fantastic because you can obviously expand your network. I think it's really a testament to Mississippi and really what Mississippi, the future of Mississippi is. And that doesn't matter if it's North Mississippi or South Mississippi or the coast. Mississippi is a state that is growing very fast, and it has an amazing amount of potential. And specifically with energy. Manufacturing it's hard. It's also expensive in the sense of electricity. And Mississippi, I think, over the next decade is going to essentially boom for manufacturing, especially as we're seeing. Yes, absolutely. What you're seeing now happening in Europe because of the war in Ukraine and energy prices, this is going to make a state like Mississippi even more attractive.
What are the reasons for that? What factors play into that?
Well, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is energy. If you look at Germany, for example, they got most of their natural gas, and their industrial sector got most of their cheap natural gas from Russia. That's been cut off. So this isn't anymore. It's not going to be a policy anymore or a political statement. Reindustrialization is happening, and you're seeing reshoring back to the United States because of market forces, essentially. You have Joseph Donovan with the Mississippi Development Authority.
Yeah.
I mean, he just brought in an aluminum smelter here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Those are good-paying jobs, and that's what Mississippi is going to benefit from.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that angle, but that is good to hear. Are you aware of any other projects looking at coming our way that you can share?
We're talking to some folks.
Oh, good.
I don't want to give it away.
What about the capital markets? Their view of Mississippi and their interest in investing in Mississippi companies?
Sure. We're at the end of cheap capital.
Yeah.
Quantitative easing is over with. The Fed is raising interest rates, and this is making a very tough capital market. I think investors, whether they're fund investors or they're institutional banks, I think they're starting to look at where are we going to put our money and what benefit are we going to get from it. The days of the software unicorns are over with.
Right.
And I think now we're going to start getting into. I think you're going to start seeing investors look at the Southeast, specifically Mississippi, because Mississippi's demographics, you have a very young population down here, labor-wise. So that's where I see Mississippi going, and that's where I see a lot of investors where they're starting to focus on. And also making sure that the jobs that they're bringing to Mississippi are actually good-paying jobs that a family can basically afford groceries, even in an inflationary environment like this.
Yeah, and you got to believe that the capital markets are a lot more sensitive in their underwriting to things, to ideas and projects that are a little bit less risky. When they're got that kind of cost of capital entering into it.
Mississippi's future is bold.
That's awesome. Joseph, thanks for coming on. Congratulations on your success, and good luck in the future. Appreciate it. We are out of here today, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us. We've had a blast down here at the Westin in downtown Jackson for Innovate Mississippi's Accelerate Mississippi annual conference. Tomorrow, MidDays is going to be at 2 museums. It's Veterans Day coming up on Friday, and we're going to be at Camp Shelby on Friday, as a matter of fact. So tune in then. Until then, stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.